Hello, everyone. This is author Cody Lee, owner of BlackCatBooks.org, and author of Rabbit Hole. The imminent release of new Pokemon Snap has me very, very excited. I have been anxiously awaiting this game ever since the original came out. I love the original Pokemon Snap. One of my favorite games on N64. I went ahead and played it on stream just the other day. Still holds up. Still love the game a whole lot. I've been talking about the game a lot. I've been very, 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 very excited about the future for this series and for Pokemon as a whole. And yet, I see very, 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 very little discussion on YouTube, on gaming message boards, on 4chan, and places like that regarding the game, the release, and no real excitement for it. And I think there's a lot of reasons for that. It is a photography sim. It's not something that like really fits the hardcore hardcore mold. But also, I think this is the real reason for it though. We're kind of at the point where the gaming community as a whole cares more about drama between YouTubers and controversies or non-controversies, right? Like outright made-up information. People are more interested in ridiculous nonsense that has nothing to do with video games than they do the actual video games themselves. As just an example, this is just an example, mind you. This isn't a particularly egregious example, but this is just the kind of thing that just drives me nuts, right? Mr. T, what was the last video he uploaded, right? It's him talking shit about Furukawa and how he's not nearly as good as Iwata. Now, I'll fully admit that I never really expected Furukawa to live up to Iwata's legacy. Like, Iwata was a glorious, glorious man and a great CEO for Nintendo. The best they've ever had, I would say, going by my metric. Love Iwata, right? Furukawa is more like a business person and not really doesn't have the game development background and stuff like that. But to go out and make these outlandish claims that oh man, Furukawa's ruining Iwata's Nintendo and Nintendo's not what they used to be. Furukawa's sending the company down a bad path. It's ridiculous. It really is. Under Furukawa, we've seen an end to the mobile game thing. Under Furukawa, we've seen the Switch success. We've seen a number of new IPs, and I think the big thing, the big thing, I think, is that nothing. I don't think there are any major Nintendo franchises that are getting worse under Furukawa. I've seen no real decline in quality. Not really. Of course, some of these, other than maybe a few third-party partnerships, which I think are very, very questionable, namely Starlink, maybe Ubisoft, things like that. I don't really have a problem with how the Switch is being conducted. Yeah, I preferred Iwata. Sure, I preferred his brand of making really, really crazy out there stuff, right? We got Star Fox Zero under him. We got Tokyo Mirage Sessions. We got lots of really, really great partnerships for Nintendo that's going to carry them into the future. Obviously, I would have preferred Iwata to stay, right? Because I had very, very high hopes for him that he would lead Nintendo into becoming one of the biggest entertainment companies on the planet, right? Bigger than Disney. But unfortunately, we had to lose him, very unfortunately, and we have to make do with Furukawa. And Furukawa is just not that bad of a replacement. Yeah, Iwata was a legendary CEO, but it's unreasonable to expect anyone to be able to fill those shoes, right? And I think, going by what I've observed, right, I don't have any reservations about Furukawa at all, right? And yet here Mr. T is constantly coming up with constantly making these weird claims about how Furukawa is going to run Nintendo into the ground, or whatever it is he was talking about. Nintendo's not what they used to be. We're kind of at the point now, I think, where the people who have grown up with who grew up with N64 and GameCube kind of see that as the glory days of Nintendo, as opposed to 10 years ago when it was the NES and SNES Super Nintendo that people were super adamantly like, oh yeah, this is golden age Nintendo right here. Like a new generation of adult gamers thinks that Nintendo used to be good 10, 15 years ago. We've seen this with the BitBlock, we've seen this with Mr. T, we've seen this with a number of YouTubers over the years who just refuse to acknowledge that, well, for one thing, that they're not really Nintendo's target audience, and for another, that they don't need to be. Like, they don't need to be obsessed with, like, Nintendo's, with this video game company, but, like, they just choose to, like, be in this, like, constant state of, like, misery and just, just, like, talking garbage about, like, things they don't even really care about. Like, and, this has led to the culture where I don't think a lot of people are more interested in like hypotheticals, right? Interested in like, oh man, I want them to see being Star Fox back. I want to see them bring F-Zero back, instead of like what we're actually getting, which is of course new Pokemon Snap, new Rune Factory, new Disgaea, new, you know, Famicom Detective Club, which I've also have not heard a lot of people talking about. Like, these are projects that are worth getting excited over, are worth talking about, and yet I'm not seeing a lot of enthusiasm among these fans because they're always bitching about something or other. And I've said this many times, but I don't think the gaming community is about gaming. I really don't. Like, if that was the case, they would be talking primarily about games, but they're not. They're talking about drama. They're talking about like company politics. They're talking about sales number. They're never actually discussing the actual video games.